I joined Professor Vines in teaching you in the micro course previously, right? It was 2 years ago, if I remember. Oh no, last year. Last year, right? Okay. So between November 2024, right? Okay, nice. It's been a while, and so it's my pleasure, it's also my honor to guide you through this class. And basically, I would say that, as I mentioned in the email, that we here in this, let's say, Imperial course, I do not, let's say, put strong emphasis on, let's say, the exam. Instead, let's say, we make it as an open discussion for the entire class, so we could wrap up, we could cover the econometrics methods, right? And if later you, let's say, you want to apply the techniques in econometrics or micro econometrics, these are pretty helpful, and the techniques we learn here as to stay up here. Of course, like there's more and more techniques and packages in dealing with the technical terms, the technical aspects, but grabbing the strong, the comprehensive intuition is helpful for your later research. And so basically, that's my philosophy when I offer this course. And if I get it correctly, this one will be your very last elective.
Next to last. We still have another one.
Oh, okay. So what is the next one, if I may ask?
I think it's a new course.
What is the release learnings?
Who's gonna be your instructor there?
Professor, I think Trabant, if I can pronounce his name correctly.
Okay. Probably that's a new course, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Nice. Yeah, because first, if we follow let's say the structure of the timeline last year, or this was supposed to be the last one before you jump into your master thesis phase. But I think if you have more choice, that would be great if you could explore, let's say, another course that might, let's say, offer you more content, more topics related to the direction you want to go further in your master thesis. Okay, and so maybe first thing first, we go through a week round of, let's say, introduction. Do not feel pressure, but it's more or less gives me some idea. Let's say maybe I need some time to recall, let's say, your cohort, right? It's been more than a year, so I forgot. I still remember your faces, but like the name of the video research teachers, I already forgot. So probably we have a quick, let's say, introduction round. Okay, good. So maybe I'll start first. So previously I was a visiting lecturer at VGU. I finished my PhD at Goethe University. Then, and during my very last 3 years, I was flying between Frankfurt and Ho Chi Minh City, and I had a great time, let's say, teaching, I think so far, 4 courses of GV programs. And so last April, I decided to, let's say, return and become a full-time lecturer here. And so my research interest, so far I covered private equity, venture capital, but then I expanded to the application of, let's say, the causal machine learning in investment, and also another topic like sustainable finance. Yes, and so maybe it's your turn. Who want to start first? Okay. Hello.
My name is Hope. So, I'm graduated from studies at university. So my major is business administration. But
Okay, and so just let's say a side question. Do you go for more or less in the macroeconomic side, or let's say economic side, or other, let's say field of finance?
Like say I stay like 1 year in my university to just study finance about my university is an application university, so it's not provide like a full field knowledge for economics, like just the basic courses.
Okay, I see. And so that's why when you jump to GFE, it becomes like another word, right? It's pretty theoretical if I recall it correctly, but yeah, very good. Yes, so the thing is like when we, I think when Professor Bidya and also Dr. Ha designed the course, they want to put strong emphasis on, let's say, the research track, and we like together all of the lecturers in the program. We try to bring at least 70% of the first 2 years of the PhD master combined program at Greater, or to be more specific as GSEFM. We try to bring at least 70% of the content to the program so that you are familiar, just in case later you want to pursue your PhD track. You at least you are equipped to some extent, and you could, let's say, ace the qualifying exam in the PhD program. But still, for those knowledge, I think right now for the Vietnamese job market, for example, for the macroeconomics analyst, they still, we are still demanding people with not only with some practical experience, but also those who could run proper model, right? And still, I must say that there's still lots of potentials for you later when you either if you want to go to straight to academia, or you want to switch to the industry. That's totally fine. That's the idea of the course. Thank you very much. Luke, so next one, please.
Professor, my name is Hui. So actually we met each other 2 years ago because I was in the Tech 2000 first, and then I stopped after the first semester.
Okay.
So I studied the macroeconomics exercises with you.
Yes.
I graduated from BG, major in computer science. Yeah, but I realized that I didn't like code that much. I love to use apply it for the big data analysis things. And I luckily I found the master program that can save me from having to find a job right after graduation. So I study here until now. I actually want to become a lecturer, but I still it's not so clear to me the careers I want to focus on. Okay, so far I think like we just finished a course with the so like I really like it, and he teaches about survey data and a bit of like household finance. So I think it's like more practical to me, and I think I will follow that for the final master thesis.
Okay, that's very cool.
Chết rồi.
So Dr. Yi, right? Dr.
Yeah.
Zhang Yi, right?
Sai tên.
Yeah, that's very good because his starting point is let's say macroeconomics, but he also used micro data for his research, so he could handle pretty well like both sides. And survey data, I must say that because so far I've been using the financial data, so I don't use survey that much in my let's say research. But he's already deals with that, and he also had let's say experience with different sources of survey data. And if that's the thing that let's say ignites your curiosity, just go for it. I would say that he's very good in mentoring, and he's a very good people good person to work with. Okay, very nice. Okay, so the next one, please.
Hello, my name is Hồ Tấn Minh Quang, and previously I was also a BTU student. I graduated 2 years ago from Bachelor of Finance and Accounting.
I see.
So I I went straight from bachelor to master like Miss that term, and also actually the reason I came to GFA was partly because of the influence from Dr.
Okay.
And because my strength is about mathematics and functionality analysis, so he advised me to strengthen my skills and expand my advanced knowledge. So that's why I came here. And about my strength is about I love macroeconomics problems and also some financial things like analyzing stocks or something like that. And perhaps after I finish this master program, I will work for a few years before returning for PhD.
That's nice, amazing. Okay, so let's say I must say that working in between always I must say that it's a great opportunity for you since you do not feel like you are forever stuck in something, right? Working, switching between industry and academia to keep your mind refreshed, and that's also what I did before. So I strongly recommend you if later you want to, let's say, take a few years to work. Probably it's not just about to work, but if you work in the finance industry, you may see some topics like that are interesting and that has a potential, and you could use that as a starting point for your dissertation later. Yeah, it's helpful, and I don't think that, let's say, we call it sometimes we just make sure that fully aroused, switching between industry and academia, but right now I think with the current job market, PhD we have lots of potential, but if we are equipped with some practical experience, your CV will be outstanding and you land job, or you, in other words, I must say that you have more chances, you have more offers to consider, right? That is very nice. Okay, thank you so much, Wing. Okay, so maybe the next one.
I am very introduction from
Okay.
so we can skip the limited.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Shita,
Mm,
and previously I was a BTO student
okay.
in business administration. And when I finished my bachelor degree, I started this master program here. So I don't have any working experience yet, but I'm looking forward to working in maybe like risk management and consulting field.
Mm, very nice. Okay. I must say that's the consulting fields, the risk management, they are growing in Vietnam, or especially in Ho Chi Minh City. And just because I need to check again what is some certificate requirement. But so far as I know, beside the hedge fund, beside the ETF fund that we've been, let's say, knowing before, there's also one growing area I think that are in need of your quant skill, that is the insurance industry. And they do not disclose, or they do not publish a lot of job posts recently, but I saw a few. I recall it was from Hong Leong's, or usually it's the insurance in from foreign firms, the Korean firms. They do require, they've been recruiting, but I do not know if they already found one that fits their demands. But I've been at least seeing a few, maybe 2 or 3 job posts. So probably if you would like to go for that direction, that's also something to consider. Maybe you have to take another certificate on the job when you're working there, designing the, let's say, packages. New insurance packages are always, I must say, let's say, it's not only amazing, but it's also like an excursion, right? And Vietnam, so far, our population is, I must say, we are under-insured. Later, I can see the trend for the next 10 to like 5 to 10 years, probably people start to, when the insurance market, let's say, becomes more strictly regulated, and people will switch their mindset from, let's say, just investing in real estate and also like to some other risky investment. They put more on the downside risk, and the insurance market, I'm quite confident that it will bloom at least in the next 10 years. So that's something you may consider. Okay, very good. Thank you. And
So it's my turn.
yes.
My name is On.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, actually before taking the master program, I have around 10 years working in industry as supply chain management, and I just some problem in daily routine or something. I just take the question what happened around me. So I just want to come back the university to get some knowledge and to build up the knowledge to understand what happened around me. But after going through the course, so it's so interesting for me. So I take more curiosity in the the theory, the methods, and especially for the tool used in empirical research. So I plan to take further education later and to explore more in the environment around us. And for my thesis, I also make the idea related to the monetary policy and also the integration in financial integration. And I hope that during the what happened around us this day is about structural change or something. So we take more idea and more result to talk about it. So that is my target now. Yeah. And so I hope that I can go further and have chance to work more in academia area. Yeah. Data. Yeah.
That's very cool. I would say that because you've been working in you was working in the industry for that's why a decade, right? So you've been seeing a lot, and I'm quite sure that you already you've seen and you have some ideas.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
those are potential areas that you could explore further,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And Vietnam, I must say that we are small, and in terms of research, sometimes researchers they put more focus on how to say mature markets like the US or Europe, but still Vietnam we
Yeah.
are going through, I must say, significant structural change in terms of policy and also in terms of I must say financial innovations.
Yeah.
And in that sense, you could equip what you already collect during your work
Yeah.
with the methods here. Yeah.
Yeah.
You may come up with lots of cool research ideas. I'm looking forward.
Yeah. And I just want to say something more about this course. And I saw that you build up the solid foundation for us beside the empirical work. So we also excited and really appreciate your efforts. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And so just one remark that I will try my best to give you the idea, the intuition behind, and of course like in a short time frame, so probably I do not go very deep into deriving lengthy derivations, because I believe that those are the ones that you could do it as an exercise. And also what's more important is because I'm pretty sure that for in total we have to deal with like some basic OLS, we deal with let's say the IV, right? Then also the differences, but in your future research, or maybe to be more specific to your next master thesis, probably you just pick one of them that to apply. And so what I want to deliver is the intuition, you know what's going on, what are the assumptions, and what might be the problem with the method, right? And getting the intuition will be a good starting point, and later you could always dig into like the detailed technical aspect.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Okay, so maybe the next one, please. Yeah.
My name is Joe, so you can call me Dave.
Okay.
Actually I was in the industry for like 6 years,
Mm.
and now I want to like switching to career, and yeah, that's why I choose to study master in
Okay.
And for my thesis, so actually I have no idea right now, but maybe I think about it like corporate finance.
Lộn tên đó, này không thấy có lộn mấy bờ
Okay,
mắt có nhục.
that's nice. And do you want to let's say focus on the let's say the Vietnamese market, or you have something in mind? Just brief. That's okay. Or if you don't have anything specific, that's also fine. But you know, like corporate finance is quite big, right? You want to look at like some other specific aspect, like I don't know, maybe investment, entrepreneur funding, or something like that.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Very good. Thank you. And so, okay, the next one, please.
Yeah, hi. I'm Lee. I also my background was also came from industry. So yeah, so I think the transition here to the GMP hopefully to pursue subsequent PhD after this program. So and then I think that's pretty much it. Nothing special about me. Yeah.
Okay. Very nice. So far, at least I see we have quite a balanced private student going straight from bachelor, and also people who are working in the industry. And so, just a question, what is the industry you were working on?
Mostly in financial services, but I spent some years in bank and some years in insurance. But I would say overall it was still under financial services.
I see. So the insurance, is that the how to say, the technical side, or the operations side? If I may ask.
Back office.
Okay, I see. So dealing with risk hedging and the likes, or
Well, actually, right now I'm in the IT side, back office of IT.
okay, I see. Still, so you, if you say that you are in IT, then I'm quite curious that you have to implement some design or some infrastructure for their pipeline, the investment pipeline,
That's,
right?
that's correct.
Okay, nice. Okay, very good. Okay, thank you. And so back to Drew, so what was the industry you were working on, if I may ask?
Yeah, like furniture,
Okay.
air filtration, some kind of like B2B market, yeah.
I see.
And a little bit in like how we run for stock price.
Okay, so it's quite diverse, right?
Yeah.
So you see this, okay. Very nice, thank you. Just give me 1 second. And correct me if I'm wrong, so do we have any recording for this course?
I thought I was supposed to have, but maybe they forgot.
Okay.
Miss On has a personal recorder.
Just private. I will not say anything.
I'm not quite sure if like we have to record it. So do you know who do we need to, let's say, contact?
We can ask on the group, we got that, and then we can do a sign.
Yes. I mean, otherwise, later it is also for your interest, right? If you want to review what we discussed, especially for the discussion here we have in class. So I'm not. So I want to make sure that you you have everything ready as you need. So later you don't need to, let's say, go shipping if you do not have the materials to prepare for your exam. So give me 1 second, please. Okay, so I notice here we have in total 8, and that means one is missing. That is Candid, right? You know if she attending the course or no?
In the afternoon.
In the afternoon, right? Okay, got it. So basically, she still present.
Yeah.
Okay, good. And give me 1 second, because I also got some information that we need some material for marketing purpose. Is this the one that you plan to have? I'm not quite sure.
Advertising, any?
What would you?
So maybe they're like materials, some photographers or some content writer will take pictures or videos. I'm not quite sure about this.
I'm not aware about this.
Okay. But we do that on our own, right? So basically, right in the afternoon before our presentation, we have one group picture. That's one. And before every presentation, I will have a picture with the person or like the group that is presenting, right? Okay. All right. So let's say what else do I need to discuss? I think we try to make it clear first before we jump into the, let's say, presentation and also like the brief lectures, right? Basically, the agenda for today is in the morning. I will cover very quickly the slide, what are relevant for the first 2 papers, the paper 1, right, Rappel and Oswald, and paper 2, Big and Rosengren. So that will be in the afternoon, and I think for the tutorial part, I will put it later. I push it to the later session, and after the presentation, right now I plan to have 1.5 hours, but if we need to spend more time to discuss the concepts, that's quite okay, right? We still have plenty of time, and we dedicate the majority of our time in, let's say, on the papers. And our focus is the first 5 papers, 1 to 5. Those are, I must say, the core papers that I want to discuss in detail with you. And for the remaining, oh, I think there's something wrong, right? It should be 7, not 6. And so just one quick check. Hit and Canton, you know that you will present paper 7, right?
Yes.
Okay, nice. Sorry for my typo. I want to rearrange a bit, but in the end, it's still the list. We go as in order. That's gonna be fine. So the yellow ones are the paper that we want to discuss in detail. The green one, right now, I want to, let's say, try to create enough room so that we could go through them. And it's very much different than my intention for this class. As at first, I wanted to have it like we focus on only 5 papers, but instead we have one group that are presenting, one group that's of 2 students that are going to present, and another 2 students from another group will discuss the paper, right? I want to create like atmospheres as if you are in a conference, because usually later if you want to go to present your work at some conference, it will be like maybe for international conference we have some session that comprises in total maybe 4 or 5 papers, and the presenter will present the paper for 15 minutes. Then we have another, let's say, discussant who's gonna discuss the paper to, let's say, to first briefly summarize the content and also try to give you some critical assessment and critical questions. And those are some valuable as the materials so that you could further polish and improve your paper. That's how a normal paper at a conference is presented. But I think here we have a group discussion, so there's no need, and we will go, let's say 9 people in total, right? So you all present them following the structure I provided in the slides. Okay. Then we have the paper presentation and also the tutorial. I uploaded, let's say, the do file, and you are familiar with Stata, right? So far in the series of courses you've been using that, so maybe try to work on it at home, and if I have time I will go through them together with you in class. Otherwise I will briefly talk about the idea or the general idea for the tutorial, but the execution, explore it at home and tell me if you are facing any problems, or you want to, or you have some idea with the data or with the research question, right? You could always bring it up to the table and discuss about it. Good. There's one more thing, and I think I got it. I got informed from Miss Twin 2 weeks ago that let's say the block course of 5 consecutive days might be stressful for you, and that's why I offer that instead of, let's say, meeting 5 days in a row. What I could do is to make it 4 days from Monday to Thursday, right? We have 4 full days, and we have, so it's up to you if you want to have the how to say, Q&A session or online session on the 9th of February or the 23 or 24. So those are 3 days before your exam, right? Your exam will be on the 27th of February. So I think I could offer you 1 extra session in that week, so that you already have some time to process, to absorb the knowledge, and if you have any question, you could ask me right before the exam. So right now I got to have either 23 or 24, but on the 9th, that's also feasible. So what is your, let's say, opinion? Do you want to, let's say, have online session on, like, so if I get it correctly from you that you would like to skip Friday, right? And we have we push them into online session. That could be either or we could make it like half a day on the 9th and half a day on the 23 or 24, right? Or let's say that's up to you. I will host the Zoom, and if the Zoom session, you are free to come in. So I will tell you those are the session that I will summarize, or I will go through the concepts or some let's say, session that you will have, let's say, free Q&A session, right? If you have question to come, otherwise you don't need to waste your time. Let me see. I will try my best to cover the main stuff for our course this week, and for the remaining one that I think the knowledge, the concepts are crucial for you, but we do not have time. I will try my best to record and upload it onto Drive so that you could watch it at home and review, right? So I will try my best to give you more resources as more resources as possible, so that you could always you have a chance to review it later for the exam, right? And for the exam right now, I plan to keep it as very intuitive. For sure that the stuff we discussed in the presentation will show up, right? And as a rule of thumb, let's say there are questions for all 9 papers, and you are allowed to pick one paper that you already present in class, and another one that is presented by another group, right? And other questions related to the concepts of maybe IV and differences and the like. But regarding the proper exam structure, I will let you know when we discuss the mock exam and when I finalize the exam for this year, right? Okay. Good. So I think, we have to fix. So maybe next week I will offer one Q&A session, maybe in between 10 and 12, something like that. Right. I will write proper email to inform you. I don't know if 9 is way too early for you, so maybe 10 to 13 or 9 to 12, 3 hours. And another session will be maybe on the 20, so maybe 23, right? Also, maximum 3 hours for Q&As and for content write-up. Yeah. Okay. So far, that's the organizational aspects of the course. Do you have any question?
Is it too early? I can ask about whether I can ask about the exam format and stuff like that.
Yes. Let me think. Have I uploaded the mock exam onto Moodle? Not yet, right? Okay. Then I think later today I will upload the mock exam. And regarding the exam structure, I have to think, but right now I plan to keep it as similar to the mock exam. If I come up with like other questions or other type of questions, I will let you know, because right now I haven't finalized the exam yet. That pretty much depends on, let's say, how far and how deep we are discussing the paper in class. That's one thing. And another thing is what I have in mind is for the papers that you are presenting, after you present, I will ask you to give me in total maximum 5 questions and 5 answers, right, related to the paper. And I will maybe use that as a pool for questions, right? That may be that may show up in the exam, plus my own question, right? And of course, my own question you do not know, but at least for the groups that for the 9 papers presented in class, you know which group are giving the questions and the answer, right? That plays, I would say that serves as some, I call it some guidelines or some polar questions so that you could have a look at them and you could, let's say, use that as a guideline for when you review the exam. So basically, I think for sure that there will be question about what is the intuition, what is the main research question of the paper, what are the main variable of interest, right? Maybe they want to explore the relationship between like the financial development and growth, right? And what are the challenges so far? What are the methods there? Something like that. That will be very much of the from the intuition side, rather than you have to memorize the result, you memorize the significance level. That might not be the case, but still, for some paper, you will notice later that the exams are quite striking, and probably there has some explanation behind that. And so that's maybe, and those the papers selected are quite classical. So they're being discussed wisely, not only in conferences, but also in textbook and also in empirical courses from university or business school. Right? So knowing that, knowing what's going on with the paper is also, I would say, helpful for you later if you want to expand your research directions. Yeah, okay. But regarding that, I will write an email later too, so that you have some idea and you do not lose any information. Okay, very good. Then let's say for the morning, I already covered this one, the schedule and also the order. Okay. Good. And I will make use of the remaining time of the morning, so maybe from 10:30 to around 11:45, I will cover a few points of the lectures, and later in the afternoon, we meet again at 1 for the first presentation. Okay, and you are free to use your own laptop if you feel comfortable, and later send me the presentation. Right?
Yep, I've just sent the email. So-
Okay, very good, thank you.
Sorry that I sent 2 email because I'm sending wrong paper name. So just
Okay.
the second one is correct.
The second one is the correct one, right? Okay, good, thank you. Yeah, and so for all the groups that are presenting like from tomorrow, if possible, I kindly ask if you could send me the slide, let's say before 10 p.m. of the day before, right? So that I have a look and I could, let's say, prepare something for you for the discussion in class. Good. Then give me 1 second. so as you noticed for the video, I uploaded on Google Drive. I briefly cover the first 48 slides, right? Basically, in this one, in this part of the course, I will cover some introductory remarks, right, regarding like the topics we are going to cover. For example, today I try my best to cover economics foundation and also econometrics foundations. We talk about linear regressions, OLS, what are the assumptions and what are we actually doing there, what is the internal or external validity, whether the results that we find are causal or it just represent, let's say, correlation, right? And what are the techniques that we are trying to have a proper identification strategy to review the causal impact. Then we talk about different types of our functional form. Basically, we regress y on x, we regress our dependent variable on one key independent variable. That is our variable of interest, but we always try to control for it, to have some control variables, right? Those are the factors that might affect or that might distort the relationship between x and y. And also what's more important is not only the level value for the variable we're going to use. Maybe sometimes we are interested more in the size of the percentage increase, right? And that's why we use the log of the variable. And sometimes we think we may see that the effect is not that linear. Oh, by the way, I think I uploaded also the causality, right? Yes, okay.
You send it to us.
And I think that's one is more intuitive. Give me 1 second. So actually this is a compressed, a smaller version of the course that we are currently studying. And this one I decided to, let's say, make it a smaller version so that I will teach my student at for the bachelor seminar before to give them some fundamental knowledge when they want to write their empirical bachelor thesis. And I think I will use this one as some benchmark, right? So that we may save time in the next slide. Basically, we want to find the causal effect between any two variables, right? To the right hand side, that shows see that is a more or less a linear and positive effect of two variables x and y. And to the left hand side, we're trying to find the relationship between three variables. We have x, y, and z, and it's no more a straight line, but it's a plane, right? And we want to see if we increase the value of one variable, what is the expected increase or decrease or expected change of another variable. And in short, we have to find a causal link between two variables. How does a change in one variable affects another variable, x, right? If we know the value of x, what is the value of y? And so far, in research, we want to make causal statements, we want to make causal claim. That means if we increase education by 1 year, what is the expected increase in our wage, right? That means increasing in X leads to increases in Y. There is a mechanism for these effects, and that will serve as a benchmark for policy makers to implement, to design, let's say, a proper policy, right? Or if we implement some stricter capital regulation, do banks become safer, or would we expect another, let's say, effect, right? Or if the CEO has more stock ownership, basically he or she has more, let's say, commitment to the company, and thus incentivize him or her to work harder and to make the firm more profitable, right? But one thing we always try to keep in mind, that correlation does not imply the causality, right? For example, so it could be, we could easily find some headlines from newspaper or from, let's say, even on televisions, that there's some, they try to claim some mechanism or some effects, right? For the case of this newspaper, of this headline, reduce crime and violence with trees in your neighborhood, right? And they report that if we increase like 10% of the tree canopy, we will observe 40% increase in property crimes, right? And 50% increase in violent crimes. That might sound very, I would say, meaningless for the beginning, because we usually ask what is the effect or what's the benefits of trees, right? And if that's the case, then we may see that the areas in, let's say, near the forest might be the best candidate for that. But again, there's still many things going on behind this claim, and we are trying to find some arguments to back up our idea. For example, as per our paper, we have more trees leads to less crime, right? And whether there is a mechanism or a channel to make this claim. If we plant more trees, we will see less crime. Whether that's the case, or it's just some observation, and the observation we see reflects another underlying mechanism. And that is the case. For example, we have one aspect, that is high income people, right? Why is that the case? Because high income people is the variable that affect both X and Y. So high income people, they tend to choose to live in areas that are not dense, right? That are wealthy, and usually in wealthy area or wealthy residential area, they are trying to keep the density of housing at a very acceptably low level, and they try to plant more trees, right? And at the same time, those high income people, if we assume that they obtain good education, they are well behaved, and as a consequence, as a result, we expect this group of people tend to commit less crime, right? And that means now what we see on the effects of trees on crime, that's actually the surface. What really was the underlying mechanism is the group of high income people, they select themselves in the area, right? And we face now the selection problem. When people select their own value of the policy variable, any correlation with outcomes are unlikely to be causal. maybe think of another questions, another research question that you usually face, that when we want to evaluate, we want to assess the impact of some policy on some variable or some metrics, right? But whether the assignment of the policy is random, let's say we say that we want to have stricter rules on capital market. Let's make the use of our, let's say the establishment of a new IFC in Vietnam, right? International Financial Center in Ho Chi Minh City and Da Nang. We want to see whether with this new establishment, we attract more capital from, let's say, foreign investor, right? But the question is whether or is there any selection problem in this one? You may think of it like actually the establishment of IFC could indeed attract equity from foreign investor. We do expect to see that like the capital flow will go into the stock market and later it will be injected into our economy. That will push our production, that will push our, let's say, trade, right? But that might be the case that not every foreign investor will choose Vietnam or the IFC in Vietnam to invest. Why is it? Because think of it strategic, let's say in a more strategic way, Vietnam is next to Singapore, right? And we're also very close to Singapore, right? And we are also very close to Hong Kong, right? And those are the two IFC that have been established long ago, and they have their, let's say, their policy, they have their regulation, they have some programs to attract capital. But if we think about it in a deeper, let's say, a general mechanism, actually the two IFC, Hong Kong and Singapore, they opened as some intermediary place for capital. Or let's say we have one specific group of investor, and actually Hong Kong and Singapore, they are very strong in wealth management, right? They act as usually they act presents for tax haven, right? So people or companies operating in such IFC, they will, let's say, benefit from low tax rate and even for capital flow, right? And actually those, they place at some intermediate area for capital flow. It's very much different than what we are trying to plan, because we do want people to inject their money to us, to give us the money, and we could use that for our production, right? But think of it from an investor point of view. What do you think from their side? What are the motivation when they want to bring their money to us, to Vietnam? I'm asking the entire class, and do not say don't be shy. Just try to ask, because here, as I said, we are trying to look at the problem at a very, from a very intuitive way, and we're trying to see what is the, let's say, motivation behind, right? So probably that will make us think more about the effect when we design the paper. And actually from my experience, usually it will be very easy that you just collect some data, you run some regression, and you have some significant results. But that's actually not how academia works. Usually even the editor or the reviewers of the journals, they want to know what is your economic or your theoretical framework, right? Do you have any theory to back up the findings that you found, right? Otherwise, as I mentioned in the slide, it's more or less data mining. You are trying to find some striking effect, but it's not backed up by the theory and also with not a well-designed empirical approach. Then they won't sell your idea, and that's why I always try to encourage you to start from theory. We have some theory. We are trying to see some mechanism behind, right? And then our data is just the latest step that help us, let's say, prove our, motivation, right? And back to the question. So let's say, if imagine you are an investor and you have a chance to inject your money, to put your money in either Vietnam, Hong Kong, and Singapore, right? And let's say you are allowed to, you could earn, you have zero tax for your capital investment or even your personal income, right? So they are the same. We have Vietnam. Maybe I'll just write here. Give me 1 second. Let's say, so we start with one very simple relationship we want to prove. That is, let's say, new IFC establishment, right? Maybe here, for the case of Vietnam, right? GDP growth. Or how to say, in other words, maybe we have the stock market, right? For example, so if let's assume that you run your regression later in 2 or 3 years, you have a data. You see that if we scroll. If your statistical tests show that we have a positive effect, right? So with the new IFC establishment, we see positive increase in GDP growth. For example, Vietnam, we have the target of 2-digit growth rate for next year, at least 10%, right? No, I think they do have it for 2025, but so far we got no official statistical report from them whether we already achieved like at least 10% growth for 2025, right? But let's say, for example, if you run your regression, you see a positive impact on this one, and do you think if this one is a reliable claim? Or if you hear someone claiming that, hey, or maybe later some reports, some official report from the government, right? That we do have GDP growth of at least 10%, they were just right. What are the points do you think that you gonna, let's say, criticize, no, not really criticize, but what are your critical arguments, let's say, for this claim?
So is like is IFC is the only reason that can cause the GDP growth? Maybe with or without IFC, there's the government already has some other type of project that can also cause the 10% GDP.
Yes. Okay, very good. So, right. So probably there is some other project going on that also makes GDP growth, right? And that is different than the IFC establishment. Good. And do you have any idea, something in mind? What might be those other events?
For me, if talk about the IFC establishment, I think it's not only the event, but it's actually the long run structural change in that, and that is the long process. I mean, working process is for a long time, not just at any point of time.
Yes.
So what make the role here? Of course, not because the value of produced by IFC, but it's maybe about the expectation and in the economy part. Yeah, I think that they expect about the higher in capital market or something, so they willing to invest more, or they willing to pay more, I mean consume more, so that make the growth. So it's, yeah, that is my thinking about this. And it ideally it is, we cannot we cannot we cannot say that the growth is impossible, because the expectation is make the economic run. So that is my thought about it. Yeah.
Yes, very good. Okay, so what else?
I just
I'm just collecting the ideas and I'll discuss with you.
I think what I have in mind is similar, but I would phrase it like a little bit differently. I mean, like, how you actually construct the variable IFC establishment. I think it's kind of like similar to how you define the financial development. It can be defined in many different ways, right?
Yes.
So
And it is.
even if assuming IFC establishment can actually cause GDP growth, but how you actually measure what in what kind of like variable construction?
Yes. Okay. Very good. So let's say here I will write at okay, variable construction always say what is a reliable proxy for that, right? Okay. Yes.
Kevin has like,
Sure. Please go ahead.
we want to test whether the establishment of IFC is effective, right? So I think like,
Yes.
just think about like, a GDP is a little bit too broad, but I think like, because we directly want to test it, so
Okay.
it used to attract the capital inflows. So I think maybe like the other dependent variables will be more direct. And we can also like, we have to have the baseline for that, for like, and like, we have to do some calculations to know like, if not with the IFC, would GDP growth by how much percent, or capital flow of how much percent, or we can use like compare with other IFC in the world that have pretty much the similar
Okay.
similar things like the Vietnam economy.
Okay, good. Let's say, yes, I do agree that GDP growth is, let's say, very broad, and we could always narrow down our, how to say, our scope, right, and to look at the KPIs. So let's say, if I don't use GDP growth, I will use the growth of the stock market. So right now, I think Vietnam, let's say the Vietnamese index rank is below 2,000, right? Or even below 1,800, right? I don't know if you still below that.
It is fluctuating between 1,800 and 1,850, around that threshold.
Okay. Yes, okay. So if you want to measure, then we could use that one, right? Of course, like this is what we could think of. We talk about whether it's reliable or not later, right? Then we could check about VN index, right? If you want, you could check also the FDI, right? Foreign direct investment. But of course, FDI is more or less a long-term procedure. Let's see. And from my point of view, the reason why Vietnamese government has been trying to push the establishment of IFC, first we have been seeing the complete change of political party, right? That's what, we have one party, but like the ruling one, right? The ruling, let's say, group that, let's say, step into power. What's next? But I must say that one of the motivation, one of the driver for the establishment of IFC is because Vietnam, we are running out of time, or let's say we are passing the golden phase for FDI. So previously, here in Vietnam, we have lots of factories, right? We have even like Korean, Japanese company, they invest directly in Vietnam, in the factory area. We have Samsung, right? Samsung or Apple, right? They came to Vietnam, they inject direct capital to make production here, and those FDI attracted, I would say in the past 5 to 10 years is huge, and even like people in ASEAN, like Thailand, Indonesia, even Malaysia, they were quite surprised with the constant flow of capital injected into Vietnam. But the problem is, back then, we have some of the advantage that our workforce is still young, right? We have young workforce and also low labor cost. But for the past 3 years, the labor cost is the biggest challenge for company in Vietnam. For let's say those FDI firms, right? They inject in Vietnam, but now the cost has been increasing, especially for Ho Chi Minh City. Like the costs are going up high, and also we are seeing a reduction in young workforce. So the golden period is almost over. We already got some warning about that. So if we do not change in the next 5 years, or let's say until 2030, we will lose significant competitive advantage, and we will be lag behind. And right now, we've seen that companies are switching to India, right? Because India, they have like large population. They also have very low labor cost. right? We've seen those structural movement of the capital. And that's why we would like to establish the IFC. That's not only one tool to control for or to attract FDI, but also to attract more types of capital and investment to, let's say, to the stock market. And what we want is the capital will be injected to the real economy. We will see real changes in the economy. And that has always been the question whether we could do that or we will just follow another, let's say, countries, right? Or I will try first here a few examples. Let's say we have this one is Vietnam, right? And what else? We have here Singapore, right? And here we have Hong Kong, right? And of course I'm trying to disentangle, trying to separate the political willingness, political target from the mechanism, right? We always have to try to look at it like, or basically we are trying to focus on one effect, one channel at a time, right? Okay, so back to the history. Singapore and Hong Kong, they are the intermediate, right? Sorry. Right. Capital market or capital harbor for other countries, right? Money coming and money out. Next, for Hong Kong, that's the same, right? And because those two countries, I use that as one very close example we could compare to Vietnam, right? Because they are quite close and we want to make use of the time difference between Vietnam and other big financial market so that the investor could make some arbitrage from the markets, right? And so far, Singapore and Hong Kong, they are doing pretty well on that, right? And they place themselves, they position themselves at the financial centers, or I would say the financial service, right, area. They focus on that. And back to the history, they are a trade haven for the let's say import and export of countries over the world, and the money step in them. They stay there for a while, probably not very long term, and the government themselves also don't really plan to need that to already to inject that into their real economy. Once they position themselves as financial service country, they will just need to collect some fees, and what they want is to become a first low tax or tax haven for investor. Next, the safe vault for investor. What do we mean by that? The money injected in, they could be easily withdrawn, right? From their point of view, from their investor point of view. They want to make sure that you are safe enough so that I could invest my money in, and what's more important is I could withdraw my money out. Otherwise, if you keep my money there and for some reason it's got lag for even just 1 hour, they will see already a loss, right? And that's the thing that Singapore and Hong Kong, they are doing pretty well so far. The trading, even like the tea, they try to reduce it to even like real-time trading. We don't see any lag, and also they have some policies so that the capital could be easily flow in and out, right? But for the case of Vietnam, we are facing one different purpose, right? We do want that the money they invest in that could be then later used for our production, our trade. and in the end, it will push our GDP growth, right? And therefore, in one of the IMC courses, which you offer to the participants from banks and also from other leading parties in those IMC establishment policymaker, what we want to know is about the trust, right? Whether my country is trustworthy enough to attract the money, right? And just in case we see that, okay, we do offer 0% tax for all investors, like Singapore and Hong Kong. We do offer more attractive rate of return, maybe, maybe 50%, right, rate of return, much higher than Singapore or Hong Kong. But do you think one investor can, let's say, can be completely convinced to put their money into Vietnam IFC with the yield of, for example, here I just write 50% rate of return, right? But for Singapore, maybe it just, I don't know, maybe 9%. Nominally, it's okay, right? Because we do see that here in Vietnam, it offers almost double, right? But still, if we are not trustworthy enough, they are afraid that their money once injected in Vietnam, they could not withdraw, or the 50% here cover the majority of the inflation, then we are facing a big problem, right? Because so far, what is the, whatever we are trading globally, the value is denoted in Vietnam or USD. It's USD. When you export, right, you sell your goods, you take back the money, you take the USD. And when you are buying some good from someone, right, you're importing, you also pay with USD. It's our denominating currency. Everything is settled, right? Settlement in USD, right? And if Vietnam could, let's say, have some mechanisms so that investor could put their USD in and take USD out, everything is traded in USD in this IFC, and that's exactly what we are planning to do. We plan to have let's say, a sandbox for that, right? Then that's okay. But if we just compare about the Vietnam dong, right, the rate of return, then it becomes less attractive for investor, right? The reason why I use the example for, let's say, for your understanding of like the entire logic or line of thought when we think about some questions is that we should think about it from different angles, right? What are the possible driving forces for that, right? So probably we see that the stock market development, we see GDP growth for more than 10%. Actually, that just within that 10%, already 6% of them are for inflation, right? For example, because we are keep injecting Vietnam dong into the economy through not only through the banking channel, but also to the compensation channel for those who, I don't know if you've read the paper, but for example, for Hanoi, we want to move 80,000 people from the center to the outskirts of the city, right? And they're willing, the government are willing to pay huge amount for compensation. That's also one way to inject the money into the economy. And basically we see the housing price go up, the food go up, everything goes up, leading to the GDP, the nominal GDP growth. GDP growth like will go up like significantly, right? But basically it just reflects the deflation of our own currency, right? And for example, even in the Vietnamese index, maybe when you run the data, when you run the analysis, you see that, okay, the VN index goes up from, let's say, 1,800 to 2,000, for example, right? And you say that, okay, look, we do attract foreign capital. But again, whether it is just temporary, right? So they put the money in the stock market, and then the foreign investor, they withdraw it anytime they want. Then we are very sensitive to the decision of investor. It does not serve our purpose of establishing the IMC. That means we want to get the money, and the money stay long enough so that it will be used for our maybe infrastructures, maybe the development of our economy, right? And again, yes, that's true that whether IMC is the only event, always the biggest problem, because probably the GDP growth, the VN index expansion, or even like when we jump into the emerging capital market, that's not the sole effect of our new IMC setup, right? And whether it's long run or not, whether we use the time that this IMC goes into operation, or maybe only after a few sets of policy are fully implemented or are fully in effect, right? And also, as before I mentioned, now when the housing price goes up and let's say the food price goes up, like people tend to earn more nominally, right? And they consume more nominally, but in fact, it's just another effect. It's not about the IMC, or it's not about the authentic growth, right? And also reliable proxy for IMC, whether it is, how to say, one dummy variable, right? Before and after IMC, or you could check it as like the lag variable, maybe 1 month before the IMC official establishment, or 2 months before the IMC establishment, and we could see that, okay, maybe the longer it is after the IMC, the effects are more profound, for example, right? So basically, this is one mini warm-up exercise, right? So that you could see whether you look at or you hear one research question, try to think of it from different angles, try to think of a few mechanisms that may, let's say, validate the claim, or that may make the claim, let's say, invalid, right? Back to our slide. So that means always causality does not imply correlation, right? And one mantra we usually keep in mind is that if we do not see any correlation after using proper techniques, right? Maybe instrument to variable IV, or indifferences, but of course conducting that also require very strict setup. And if we do not see any effect after that, then there is no causal effect, right? But when we see some effect, that might imply first correlation and then causality, right? Then we have the OLS, and what are the violations, right? For OLS, I basically just try to discuss like 3 big ones. The OVB, the augmented variable bias, that is exactly the case here. High income people, they are omitted from our impression, right? And that might be the case that we have the reverse causality. That means it's not more trees to less crime, but let's say the area with less crime, right? They tend to have more trees, right? Why is the case? Because again, with the same, and let's say argument. So the area with less crime tend to attract wealthy people or highly educated people, and they would like to have their, let's say, their house decorated or mingled in a large area of 3 or more green pieces in their living zone, right? And so to visualize that, we have one very short and brief regression, right? We try to regress wage on education, right? And our coefficients is what reported in our regression table that you will see in many of the papers, right? And so we have education is our variable interest, and we have the error term. And what is the mechanism here we want to see? So basically when we try to run the OLS, we try to minimize the sum of square, right? The zero sum of square. Basically we are trying to make a red line going through all of the data, right? And the difference between the actual point and the point in our red line, right? We sum them up and we make sure that the sum is minimum. And beta measure the slope, and alpha is the intercept, right? Or basically you cover econometrics before, right?
Yes.
Okay, and you cover this one already, or no? Or it's more about the macro side. I'm not quite sure about like the level and also the topic that the former lecturers give you in previous courses. If you think that you got it, and we could speed up. That's totally fine.
Yeah, we can speed up this one.
Okay, yeah. So maybe I'll just speed up on this. So I send you the slide, and you know like different, let's say form, right? We take the log and the lens, and you know how to interpret that, right? Okay, good. Okay, so sometimes we want to measure not just the nominal increase in wage, but the percentage increase in wage, right? And we try to take the log, and that leads to, yeah.
In this part, I just want to have a quick question. So
Yeah.
like from the nominal to the log, then I understand. But then sometimes we use the quadratic form, right?
Yes.
Then also recently we see those like interaction terms. So
Yes.
those are the two areas like for me right now I'm not very confident to.
Okay. Okay. Then I will just cover them in class 2. Right. That's okay. Okay, good. So we take a log, and that shows or that tells us the percentage increase, right, in our y variable. And then next I will show you, let's say, usually normally in research paper we see regression table if they use regression, but if they use other thing like maybe t-test between groups, then that might show different, right? But still, to some extent, they are on the same running point, right? So we have here the variables, the dependent variables, and our independent variables, and usually we see the coefficient, right? Let's say maybe if predicted income is, let's say, increases by 1 unit, then the true log income will increase by 1.138 units, right? And we have the statistically significance. It just show you like whether on 95% level or 95% of the time we observe some difference, right? Some coefficient that are different than 0, right? Because we want to test that the coefficient, or let's say there is actually some effect. So we expect the effect to be different than 0, right? And we test this usually most of the time, the beta coefficient different than 0. Okay, good. We have p-value and also t-value, they are actually interlinked because what? Because for the t-test, if using the law of large number and the central limit theorem, the t statistic or t distribution will converge to a normal distribution, and that's why we could use the t-test or the p-value instead of the t-value, right? But as a simple rule of thumb, when you see the t statistic greater than 2, then we know know that the beta coefficient is statistically significant at least 5% level, right? Okay, good. So I just visualize them here, and sometimes we do not use only R square, but we do the adjusted R square, right? Because what's the problem with R? When we are trying to add more variables into the regression, R square automatically increases, right? Think of it this way: when we have more variables into the regression, more variation of Y will be explained, and that means we have higher level of R square. And that's why sometimes we are encouraged to use the adjusted R square, right? To take into account the number of regression we include in the model, right? So let's talk about, let's say, the violation of our regression and what are our remedies, right? So we face three main problems for identification. The first one is the OVB, augmented variable bias. Next, we have some measurement error. Basically, it comes from usually the accounting side or inputting side. For example, if the number is just 100, but you incorrectly input that when you collect data, instead of 100, you enter maybe 100,000, right? And that would make this one an outlier. And if for one, then we could easily remove the outlier. But what if all of the variables is imported incorrectly, right? Then we face the measurement error bias. How are we going to deal with that? And simultaneity bias. But I think what we care more about and the easy way to criticize or to analyze the paper is to look first at the augmented variable bias. And one very quick remark that the instrumental variable IV is powerful because it could solve all these three problems that we have here: OVB, measurement error, and simultaneous or simultaneity bias, right? But finding a good IV is always a challenge, right? So here in short, we have education and wage, and what is one confounding factors that we forgot to include in our regression that affect education and wage, right? Two conditions that must affect the wage and that must be correlated with education. And that might be the ability, right? So people, ability here refers to the innate capacity. Some people are born with like high EQ, high IQ, right? And they could do better at work, they could learn faster, and they could earn higher wage, right? Regardless of their education. Yeah. And regarding augmented variable bias, we have observable and unobservable. For example, ability, whether we could observe ability, right? If that is the case, if we could observe something, you think of some variable that might be missing, and you think that, okay, you could find a reliable proxy for that. Then we just try to include that into our regression, right? And otherwise, for example, for the case of variable, here we have, if you think that maybe people with more experience could earn higher wage and tend to, let's say, obtain higher education, and you could find some variables, some KPI or some measures to capture that, include that directly into the regression, right? And here comes like the one you're concerned that why do we need some let's say corrupted terms, right? And again, usually that if you could use some theory to back it up, that's much better. But think of it this way, for example, he's starting from a very realistic example that if we say that education increases, then our wage will increase, and age affect education and a professional wage, right? So maybe when you start working, you work longer in the industry, then you tend to earn higher wage. But whether this one is linear, so probably when you start working, your wage is very low, right? But at some point, and it start growing like this. 1 second. Age, and this one is our wage, right? And of course, when you were born, something until, let's say for an average people, maybe you join the workforce at the age of 22. This is what is general example, right? Here, you start working, maybe then you retire at 60, something like that, right? Just draw some very basic one. So until you are 22, you earn nothing, right? That means your salary is almost zero, or maybe you earn some very mini jobs that could give you like a few pennies for your lifestyle. That would be fine. And then when you start working, your salary will increase, right? Sometimes it will increase. This one is a general case. You earn something to 65, then you stop working. What do you see? Then maybe a reduction, right? You don't earn anymore. Or maybe even with your I don't know, your pension fund, you could earn something like that, but still, your salary will be something like this, right? Or maybe another one, and we will see that in the industry very often, that maybe you stay, some people they start working in the same line, then you work until the age of maybe 22 to maybe 35 or 37, then you reach certain level of executive role, right? Maybe like this. But after some certain level, or maybe if you become specialist, right? There's some base scheme in this company salary scheme, but you just expect something plateau right after that, right? Because yeah, they say that okay, if you do not jump to manager level, then you your salary will be like something like that, right? And still, if they decide to stick to the specialist path, it will be just plateau or just slow increase. It start to decrease, or we call it the diminishing return. Right? And we see that it start to increase and then decrease. It's the variable, right? And that give us some signal that okay, so probably if we only include age, we are missing something. So probably people at age 0, they earn nothing, or maybe people at age 70, right? If we jump here, then probably that person will earn huge amount or huge level of wage, but indeed they already returned. So that's not the case. And therefore we see, okay, now we have age has diminishing marginal effect, is increasing and then decreasing, then probably the variable will capture this effect much better than the linear line, right? And that's why we try to include the A square. But of course, always, if you think that it has some other patterns, you include age to the power of 3 or 4. That very much depends on how you argue, so that you could include it in the model, right? And let's say, assuming if the actual regression is that contains age and age square, and you forgot to capture age square in your regression, that means now you are missing this one, right? You do not have this one in your regression. It will incorrectly capture the effect of age on your wage, right? And therefore, having the right form is encouraged, right? We encourage you to try to argue and include any meaningful, let's say, variables in your regression. And of course, we assume that all the variables that we could not capture will be included in this error term U, right? Then next, then what if we have the effect, but it's very much different across the gender, right, and also the marital status? We know that, for example, for the case of female, sometimes once they got married, right, they have to go through the parental leave, and it also somehow affects their wage pattern, right? And so to capture the style effects we see in the industry or in real life, researchers came up with the interaction terms, and basically it's just a way that help us review the effect, the true effect for each variable. For example, we have the female variables, married or not, and when someone who is female and married, then it will be captured by beta 1, beta 2, and beta 3 in total, right? And after we take into account these factors, beta 4, the coefficient of education, will be more reliable. Right now, maybe we do not say that it's causal, but still it's more reliable than if we do not control for all the different level of effects from gender and marital status, right? And in the next slide, here I just show you what it means. So alpha is the same for all people, right? And if all the beta is 0, that means now beta 1 0, beta 2 0, beta 3 0. We only have alpha and beta 4. It is the effect for the group of male and single, right? Because here female equals 1 if the person is female, 0 if male, right? And here married equal 1 if married, and equal 0 if single. These are the B variables. So when beta 1 is 0, beta 2 is 0, basically female is 0 and married is 0. That refers to the group of single male, right? And if female is 1, married is 0, and of course, if married is 0, then female times marriage must be 0, right? Because 0 times 1. And that is where we refer to the group of single female, right? Then next, the married male is when female is 0, married is 1. And 0 times 1 is 0, that means female times marriage is 0, right? And the final group, when we measure the effect for married female worker, then female is 1, married is 1, and married times female is 1. So for this group, we need to take into account the sum of all 3 coefficients, right? So are you okay so far?
Yeah,
Oh.
just want to have one quick question. I
Yes.
understand so far, but then say like, how do you know what kind of interaction you want to look at? Because there can be many
Yes, but so let's say, how to say? So you want to know whether we should take into account male or female marriage or not married or
No, I mean like from the original, like can you back to the slide with the econometric equations, right? Like, I mean like when you try to construct your model, how do you know what kind of like dimension to look at? Like here you want to look at the interaction between marriage status and the gender,
yes,
but there can be other kind of like interaction, right? So
yes.
so overall, how do you know which kind of interaction to be included, which one should not be included?
Okay. Good question. Actually, I must say that of course there are multiple factors that could affect wage, right? And to some extent, and of course that induces us to go back to what is our real motivation in analyzing the effect, because one could always say, okay, for whatever factors that I do not care, I just include that in the error term, right? The error term will take care of that for me. But in this case, so we know that education and wage is the relationship that you want to see. But as maybe policy maker or someone who want to see the, I must say that the structure or the different level of the population to answer your question, then the two things that come up with in your mind, right, that are maybe whether they are single or not, maybe they are male or female or not, or let's say if I want, I could say, okay, regarding beside these two females or married, I want to have one more factors because I think it's crucial that the wage of someone is strongly affected by their financial background. Let's say, right? I could do that here. What is that? So here we have log. So log wage, right? And this is education, right? So we want to see something like this. But education, we look at our population, we know that that is very much different, or let's say different group experience different level of education and different level of wage, correct? Then we think about it this way, single or not. Then let's say what else? Maybe call this one as wealthy or not, right? The background. We could think of this way, maybe people who are luckily born in wealthy families, they have enough resources for them to pursue higher education, right? But at the same time, let's say with the network of their parents, they could land a more or high wage, or they could earn higher salary in their job throughout their entire life, right? Wealthy. For example, right? Just basically we try to brainstorm from the data that we have first. What do we have and how could we see the difference? Or in the paper you may see something like this. So we know that the overall effect of education, or the average effect of education on wage, but we want to push it further. We want to see heterogeneity, right? Heterogeneous effect. Basically, different groups will experience different level or different effects, right? Then let's say we have here okay, so our variable married. Right. In your data set, you know that this person is married or not. If we see one, yeah, married. 0, single, right? Female or not? Right. So maybe here, female, if the person is female, right? If 0, 0 if the person is male. What else? Wealthy or not? Right. Or wealthy family, right? Let's call it this way. Right. So let's say this. Wealthy. And of course, how to identify, how to classify this one as wealthy or not, depending very much on how you choose the KPI, right? And here this one is else. Right. And of course, if you have more idea of different, let's say, various differential effect, you try to include that. And now tell me, if we have those 3 categories, right, you think that will affect the wage. How are we going to translate to our regression? And of course, we always have to include all of the possible coefficient in our model. We do not just select merit in our model, then that will be a violation of our specification, right? So then now a quick exercise for you, tell me what should we include here? So we have log wage, right? Here alpha plus we start first with merit, right? So beta 1. What else? Female, right? Let's call it beta 2. Then what else? Wealthy. This one is beta 3. Right. Once we specify the model, we want to include all possible interaction terms. It would just, so let's say, do you think if I stop right now, our models, let's say, make sense? No, right? Let's say I call this here gamma education. So we know that our focus is this one. Right. We want to see the true effect of education on wage. And gamma is what we care. But no, we know that. We also know that the more we control, the more we add variables, the more variables we add to the model, it will make this gamma change. Right. And therefore, if I do not include anything, then we have one level of gamma. If I include beta, marriage, and female, I would say that you could do that, but it does not help you create a reliable version or reliable coefficient of gamma. Therefore, once you want to include interaction terms, try to include any possible terms that could, let's say, you could derive from this one, right? From a set of variable you want. Then, okay, please go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I just want to for this point, another question also in this slide. apply, but I phrase it slightly different, right? So for example, if I play the role of someone who reading a paper,
Yes.
I'm not the one who doing that. How can I be convinced that whatever you presented to me is really cause and effect, or you just playing around with different interaction term? Maybe the first time you run it without any interaction is insignificant. Then
Yes.
you add on and you add on, you add until that it's significant, and then you show me that result.
Mhm.
Then for a reader, how can I be convinced that this is the one?
Okay. Actually, that requires lots of trainings and also lots of, let's say, experience when you try to let's say, analyze the paper. Because I must say that there are various types of tricks or questions one could detect. But let's say, if someone who choose something or choose some certain model, they usually come up with some reason for that. So when they describe in their methodology, they stay in, let's say they say explicitly that, okay, they want to control for that. And that reason, that is a key or important elements that the literature so far has been using, and they want to control for that, right? And first they need to explicitly explain. Next, and of course, like when you do research, I also mentioned in the slide that sometimes we are facing some pressure that if we have insignificant results, they might not land, or to be more honest, that there will be no landing journal for that, right? And that's why researchers tend to find some effects that are significant, or at least that makes sense for them. The mindset is very much different between academia and industry, is in the sense that, because I myself experienced that. In academia, we want to see significance, we want to see whether the effects correct. And of course, one way is to find some theory to back it up, right? Otherwise, you are just showing some correlation. People won't buy into your results. But when I was working for in the industry, I must say that sometimes finding insignificant effect is beneficial. Why is it the case? Because that will tell you that probably this is not the right question to ask. Probably the effect is not there. So probably you, for example, back then when I was working for an energy trading company, so I was working in the middle department, and I build models every day so that the front office trader, he could use my price list to make his decision to put some long and short order for the future market, right? And he told us that, okay, so in the summer, usually the energy price, the electricity price is much lower than he expect, or he wants us to include that, or to make some mini test to see if it's possible that we reduce our hedging level, right? Because if the actual trading level is very low, then if we hedge a lot, then we are making it, then we are wasting money, right? Let's say we try to hedge just a sufficient level for those trading prices during the day, usually from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And I actually tested. He told us that, okay, within like his throughout his career, he's been seeing that, so I sat down and talked to him. Okay, so what you see is that a systematic patterns. You see it's almost every day, or you see it just for a few specific months of the year, or what are the events before such low level of day trading, something like that. I asked a lot, And he told us, yeah, it's not that very something structural, it's not daily. Sometimes it's because of some catastrophe or maybe some storm, something like that affects the trading. And so I told him, okay, then I will make a quick check, and I have some mini research project in our department, and in fact we show that there is no significant effect on that. So basically, if during those day trades, if we try to reduce the, let's say, the hedging level, it will not lead to any increase. We use our historical data to test this, and I told him that, okay, so maybe we need to reformulate our question. Then rather than hedging it, we should make another strategy like buying less from the beginning, something like that. So what I want to say is, yeah, in the industry or when you work later, if you have to run regression, sometimes insignificance is also a plus. That saves you lots of money, right? Because think of it this way. So if I should tell him, okay, then I think this one is insignificant. I try to test it with different time frame, with different model. We do not see any effect. But we insist to hedge the risk. Who knows how large the loss might incur, right? So if we do not, if we keep it like that, then probably to some extent we might be over-insured, over-hedged, but the loss are always kept at our, let's say, expected level, right? And back to your question. So when we read a paper, yeah, of course we need to check to see how they develop the hypothesis, how they tell us why they include some specific variable in their model, right? But most of the time, I think they say that, okay, some other researchers have done that. Like for the same question, they have done that, and I think it makes sense to include that because it may affect X, affect Y, something like that. And regarding like the reporting errors, one way is to check their summary statistic, to check the patterns of the variable. Sometimes they have to show you the movement, the evolution of one variable over time, right? Something like that. Then we have to like gather pieces to really tell like, okay, so if those evidence support their findings or those evidence depicts some others, let's say, some others confounding forces. For example, they have one mini sample, right, to run their test, but 80% of the test, or let's just make it this one. For this example, do you think if their report, their results are reliable, if 80% of the participants in their sample are single, are male, or 80% of the sample, let's say, earns the wage significantly lower than the average. And then we have maybe, for the case of wage, probably 5 people in the sample accounts for 95% of the total wage, let's say, right? Then we have outliers. And if they ignore that, they do not mention that, because if we do see outliers, I expect them to first maybe drop them, right? Or if they include the outlier, then I expect the researchers to show me what are the effects without those top 5 wealthy people, right? And also, for example, if they're when they report the results, and I'm pretty sure that when you read the paper, you see that sometimes it's just not one single table, right? They have one table reporting different proxy, right? Different dependent variables, and also how the effects are changing when they control for more variables, right? And also they want to show you the heterogeneous effect when if they split it into subsamples, if they try to, I don't know, maybe to see different effects when they have some shock, maybe they push the left, something like that, right? So all in all, what they are trying to do is to tell you one biggest message, that my results remain significant and remain, let's say, the magnitudes are quite considerable after I control for, or after I make different specification in our model, right? And your question, I would say, is a very good question, but keep it in mind that always be, let's say, curious, always try to be like to find the, to verify the claim, right, of the researchers, because we know that the papers may have gone through like different revisions, but the reviewers, to some extent, they focus more on, let's say, the contribution. So probably we know that the tests are not well conducted. The tests are way too simple, right? But it helps researcher, or it helps the reader to understand some important aspect of finance. Then the editor and the reviewers will accept the paper. But from our point of view, we will try to keep it as a very, let's say, skeptical or conservative lens, right? We do not believe it from the beginning. We keep asking, and at some point we see, okay, whether they convince us, or let's say their claims are to some extent acceptable, right? But of course, like, if you ask 100 people, I'm pretty sure that 100% of them will tell you that they wish if they have more resources, they wish they have more time, they have more, let's say, capacity to conduct a better results. But so far, this is the best they could do, right? So hope it helps.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Then let me just write a few things. So here, maybe married. Right. Times female. And we do have married times wealthy. What else? Female times wealthy, right? What else do we need to take care of? Maybe beta 4, beta 5, and beta 6, right? As we have 3 different terms and we interact them, we also need to include another triple interaction term. Married times female times wealthy, right?
How you actually integrate the one that you multiply 3 times?
Let's say because we want to interact, so in total we expect to have 8, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, sorry, 7. This is not 8. But basically, we know that we start to increase our level of interaction. First, we include the single one, right? So purely married or not, female or not, and wealthy, right? Then we try to, so this one is level 1. So level 2 is the interaction of 2 variables among the 3, and level 3. So basically we are trying to include any possible interactions from our combination of three variables. And that's why we start from single first, then two vars, and then three vars. Then what if I have four variables? Then again, I'll start first with 1, right? And 2, 3, 3 and 4, right? What else? Then I will increase the interaction by one level. So now we have 1 times 2, correct? 1 times 3, 1 times 4. What else? 2 times 3, right? And 2 times 4, and 3 times 4, correct? Of course. And then 4, like 4 times 1 is exactly 1 times 4, so it's the equivalent. Then we start to increase 1, 2, 3, right? What else? 1, 2, 4. Then we have what else? 2, 3, and 4, correct? And then we increase another level. Now 3 already. Have I missed something? No, right? 1, 2, 3. Oh yeah, you're right. Yes, we need to move 3, 4, right? Then we need to have one final. This is the highest one, right? Because out of 4, what we could do is to select 4 out of 4, right? To find combination. Sorry. Or let's say one of the way to think about it is you are trying to select 1 from 4, right? Then we select 2 from 4, then select 3 from 4, combination. Oh sorry, this is 1 is 3, right? And then, yeah, we cannot go further. So one of the best way that we could make sure that we do not miss any interaction term, and also when you decide to interact, always try to include all of, let's say, possible combination, right? Okay. Thanks a lot. So I think that's it. I stopped much later than I expected. So let's say to give you sufficient break, I suggest we resume to our lectures. Obviously, we have the presentation at 1:50, right? Is it possible?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So thank you so much.
1:15.
Yes, 1:50. And I do think that depending on your pace, we do not have to push it to 4:45. That is just our, let's say, plan for the day. If you are tired, then we could end early and we could push another discussion later. Because I do think trying to push it long doesn't help much.